Can I still sing?
If you want to sing, you can sing, but we are live. Copy. Um, let's see. Yep, it's up.
I don't see it.
Me either. I see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome into the Off-Brand Avalanche podcast, following the Avalanche 3-0 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights. Marshall is sad. I think we're all a little bit sad. This one was
I'm
tough.
definitely sad.
As 3-0 losses go, it maybe wasn't the worst game the Avalanche have ever played. They also didn't play a good game either. They played well towards the end, but at that point, Fleury had his momentum and he just took over the game. It was all Fleury towards the end there. There was nothing the Avs could do that was going to go in on him. He didn't even look like Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, he wasn't playing his own style of goalie, you know? He looked like 2012 Jonathan Quick. Like, it was just like, there was no sense to it.
Yeah.
It was just, wherever the puck was, he had some body part in front of it.
Yeah, dude, his 2021 highlight reel is going to be accumulation of this whole game. I mean, my God, seemed like every other shot, it was just Flurry like sprawling out and making a dive save or whatever. So it's frustrating, but
these are the most annoying games in my opinion. Like when John Gibson does it, or when Fleury does it to us, especially when they're just
Darcy
so
Kemper.
hot. Darcy Kemper does it to us. When they're just so hot, you just can't beat them. It gets annoying to watch, and I know for a fact players get frustrated as well. And I thought the Avs played good in the first 10 minutes of the game. We were getting our chances. Fleury once again was standing on his head, and then we got away from our game a little bit and let them get back into the game near that end of the first and
Yeah,
going into the
the
second.
Knights kind of took control. The first 10 minutes of the second, I think, was that one stretch where they clearly outplayed us and they got 3 goals for it. They outplayed us at other times in the game, too. Like, I felt there were parts where the Avs looked like the better team, and there were parts where the Knights looked like the better team. But, like, overall, towards the end of it, the Knights had outplayed us, but both goalies were standing on their heads. I thought the Avs pretty thoroughly outplayed the Knights, especially in the second half of the third. But that one stretch in the second, they got 3 goals, and Grubauer, he played pretty well. He didn't play a bad game. I wouldn't say it was a great game either. They had 2 breakaway goals, so it's like how much
I feel
is really on him, but there were one or two that I thought he maybe could have saved. At least Fleury would have saved them, basically. We go back to that every time we lose a game like this. It's like maybe he
tonight
should,
at
maybe it
least.
wasn't like he really should have saved it, but the goalie that beat us would have saved it, and that was kind of the difference in tonight's game.
I kind of feel like Grubauer's play was the direct equivalent to how the Avs played. Like
Mm-hmm.
he played good at times, not great. There were times that he could have done better. Same with the Avs. I feel like Grubauer's been kind of being the conductor of this train all season, and for him not to necessarily have his best game ever, maybe that's why the Avs didn't necessarily have their best game ever.
Very possible.
I actually thought Grubauer played pretty well, but
Yeah,
I don't think he had a bad game at all by any stretch of the means. But mostly the Avs were just discombobulated all game. We were not getting the tape to tape passes. We were just we're out to lunch for most of the game. It felt like the boys were just making bad plays all over the ice, and we've said it all season. He's all NHL to this point. He deserves a spot on that team if that was a thing, and yeah, I think he was that again tonight. I don't think he was the reason that we lost or anything like that.
no,
Obviously, when we don't
Yeah.
score, but I don't think he was at
Oh,
all
I
the worst
definitely agree
player.
with that.
no, that's not what I'm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
not at all what
Okay.
I'm trying to say here.
Cool.
I'm just saying like we can all agree that there were stretches that the Avs were the best team on the ice, and there was also stretches in which they were the worst team on the ice, and for stretches Grubauer was the worst goaltender on the ice. Maybe for the entire game.
Yeah. When there's only
Just that-
two.
Yeah, I'm just my whole thing is I think Grubauer has been he's been driving this bus all season.
Hmm.
And for him not to necessarily have the best game ever, it kind of epitomizes this team to this point. You know, they altitude, they constantly brought up the stat that the Avs are the best defensive team in the NHL, and I would argue that the reason that they're the best defensive team in the NHL is because of Grubauer. Especially with the whirlwind of defensemen that we've seen, I think we've started 12 defensemen so far this season, so it can't be hard for a goaltender. But Grubauer, I think, is the MVP on the Avs thus far, and so I think the train goes wherever Grubauer is going to lead us at this point. And hopefully that's not necessarily the trend continuing on. He is a really good goaltender. We've seen him be elite this season, but that's not necessarily something that even like in the off season we're touching on being our strong
Yeah,
point.
I think
It's
we
not
all
like it's
kind
John
of
Gibson.
are trying to work our way to the point that Grubauer tonight played a pretty good game. It wasn't as good as Fleury. If you thought what Grubauer did tonight every single night, you'd be perfectly fine with that. You'd give Grubauer a new contract at the end of the season. But it's not what he's done the last few games. You know, the last stretch, the last 3 games of this series, he's been better than he was tonight. So I think that's where we're at.
That I will agree with. I just don't think he's necessarily the
I
story
agree
out
with
of the
that as
game
well,
all.
because I think there's a
Well,
few other
no.
guys we need to
Okay,
talk about.
cool.
That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm
Cool.
trying to be
Okay.
Colin Coward out here.
Okay.
I'm trying to be Colin Coward out here, saying that Grubauer is driving the bus right now, and the
Yes.
Avs are kind of just riding along. And we can't rely on that as the season progresses. We need, McKinnon and all these guys to equal the firepower of Vegas, specifically tonight. But there's not so much you can do when you run into as hot of a goaltender as Fleury was tonight. So I'm just saying Grubauer is extremely important to the Avs' success thus far. But it's not like we can rely on him to steal us games, like we've seen him do this
Yeah.
season a couple times.
And I like that you brought up McKinnon. I want to talk a little bit about McKinnon. Did he have a bad game tonight? He had some moments that were pretty bad.
Yes.
So
I think all the Avs had problems
Dude.
Yeah.
like fumbling the puck. That was a big problem tonight. Falling over, just the ice again. It
Yeah.
seemed like it was like
McKinnon's
in the
blind
sun or
passes
whatever.
are starting to drive me crazy
Yeah.
a little bit.
Like it did not seem good.
I feel like I feel like the entire defense was making blind passes all night. And Zach, you made a good point. It seemed like they were back at Tahoe again. There were a couple of times in the same shift that Rantanen was just falling over himself. It's like,
Yeah.
did he not get his skates sharpened after the first period of Lake Tahoe?
that
Or what's
odd man
going
rush
on here,
where he
boys?
just stumbles over the circle, sticks out.
Hmm.
It was just a weird game in my opinion, man. I know, like, dude, we haven't really touched on this yet, but it is really hard to beat a team of the caliber of the Golden Knights 3 times in a row.
Hmm.
This was like kind of a really big testing point to an extent because this was the biggest game of the year so far because we would have taken a bit of like, we would have at least points percentage wise gone in first place in the West. But still, the Golden Knights are a really freaking good hockey team. The Avs and the Golden Knights are 2 of the favorites to win the entire thing. So to ask the Avs to go out there and beat them 3 times in a row is a bit of a tall task. But still, I kind of wish that we had
we gave
seen
ourselves a
something
chance to
different
do
tonight.
it, and we didn't really come out and execute tonight. The first 5 minutes of the game, I felt like maybe the Knights came out pretty desperate. They knew, like, as much as we wanted to win 3-1 in this 4-game stretch, they really didn't want to lose 3-1. And it looked like the Knights came out flying, knowing, like, we cannot lose this game. And the Avalanche weren't quite ready for it. Like, the Avalanche looked like they were going to see the same Knights team that they saw the last couple of games, and the Knights elevated their play.
Yeah.
And to the Avs' credit, like I said in that first 10 minutes, I thought we had an even first 10 minutes. We were getting our chances, and
Yep.
Fleury was just absolutely unreal.
It was
all
even.
of the
It was
game.
just very high event,
Yeah,
which
and-
is maybe a little less than expected for when 2 of the top teams in the league go against each other. There were definitely
Right.
a lot of offense on both sides, and maybe a couple of defensive things that could have been a little bit better. Um, Speaking of defensive things that could have been a little bit better, Connor Timmins shows so many flashes, but he also has so many of those
Yeah.
rookie mistakes. That first goal, I want to talk about a little bit. He was in the box for it, so you're not going to blame him 100%, but you got to blame him a little bit. The reason he takes the penalty, he jumps up in the play
Yeah.
and then makes a pass to his own point, which Val Nichushkin was working his way up there. But if you're the point man and you aren't looking and know for a fact your guy is there, maybe don't make a pass to the point that you're supposed to be on. That's what leads to the turnover, which allows the Knights to get the puck, and then Connor Timmins, while trying to make up for it and get the puck back, takes a penalty, which then leads to the Alex Tuck goal. So a little bit of frustration from Timmins. And like I said, he's also had moments where he's like, wow, that's a legitimate top 4 NHL defenseman. He's getting the puck out of traffic, getting through guys, staying with it, but he has had some real down moments as well this season.
That play is what I fucking do in NHL on the PlayStation. Just ice my own puck, dude. Yes, Billy, he has had some flashes, but this is kind of what you'd expect out of a typical rookie defenseman in the NHL. You know, like we've been blessed the last couple of years to have Makar absolutely setting the world on fire last season, winning the Calder. And thus far this season with Byram, it's like he has shown every bit that he deserves a roster spot in the NHL on one of the NHL's best teams. So I think this is a bit, of Timmins trying to grow into himself and figure out his game and where he fits in the NHL. But yeah, it's plays like that where it's like, oh, maybe I kind of wish we had EJ, back. And,
just a little bit
stuff.
more of a veteran presence.
But yeah.
Yeah. I thought the penalty just was pretty bad overall. I didn't like that penalty in the first place. And to touch on Timmins, so do you guys think maybe he's playing with a little bit of nerves, seeing what Makar and Byram can do?
I think he's also just standard NHL nerves. Like I think Marshall's point was perfect. We've watched Makar and Byram as rookies who look like they're basically NHL ready, which they both were. And Connor Timmins, NHL ready at times, but not fine-tuned. He's got a lot of that fine-tuning left to do to figure out how to be an every-night NHL player, which I think is why he's on a little bit of a rotation right now.
Yeah. To be honest, I like the point that Jim brings up in the chat, though. He says that Grube, I think without a doubt, he's the MVP. But who would be runner-up? Because that's a tough one for me.
McKinnon and Makar.
Because that's what I was bringing up in the beginning.
Yeah,
but that's what I was bringing up in the beginning. Like Grubauer was driving the bus so far. It's not McKinnon. It's not really anyone else. And that's kind of hard to say, but it's the truth. Grubauer has been our best player so far this season, and that's why on a lot of pages he is the Vezina front runner. But I do think that there is time for McKinnon or Makar or Rantanen to overtake that spot. But thus far this season, it's a bit hard. I think you probably have to nod McKinnon. He is the driving force of our offense. But there is argument to be made that Makar is
I think
the runner-up
Makar's been
too.
more consistently good. McKinnon has been good too. Yeah. I don't want to kind of bash McKinnon here and say he hasn't been what he has been the past few years, because he's still been an elite NHL player. He hasn't been able to find the scoring touch yet. He's got 18 points but only 4 goals. He's still been a very, very effective player. He's got 18 points. He's getting the assists, but he hasn't quite found his scoring touch yet. Makar, a little bit of the same thing. While he's been a very, very effective player, just the 1 goal so far. He hasn't quite found his scoring touch either, and we don't expect him to score 20 goals this season. Maybe 10 to 15 would be great out of a defenseman, but I think Makar very consistently has looked like he's playing at his best, if maybe not finding the back of the net. And McKinnon, when he's at his best, has been dominant, but there have been a couple of games, this tonight included, where I felt like this isn't the best McKinnon that we've seen. He's maybe even a little bit too confident that he knows exactly where all his guys are going to be. Like I said, I'm getting tired of some of these blind passes. He's gotten a lot of, oh, I'm driving and I'm just going to swing it behind my back, and he thinks Rantanen's going to be there, and maybe a little bit is on Rantanen for not having been there as much this season as he has been in years past. So it's closer, but I think without a doubt, without Grubauer, we're not looking quite as good as we have this season because Grubauer's held us in a lot of games that we haven't necessarily run away with like we did at times last season.
Right, and thank God for Grubauer. But if I had to pick one, I think I'd go Makar as well. But just the injuries and the way the season has gone, I think it's like hampered a little bit of the boys and their production. That week break. Luckily for McKinnon, he's able to rest up and get healthy again. But before that, just injuries and things like that just pile up, and it's hard when you're playing with different players every night, and it's hard to get going like that. Not everyone can be Sidney Crosby.
That's something that I kind of like you brought up, Zach, because he is playing with the. Wait, are you talking about Makar McKinnon?
McKinnon.
Playing. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. But that is a good point because McKinnon has seen a bit of a revolving door. It hasn't been the three-headed monster as consistently as we saw last season. Landeskog has been playing on the third line the last 2 games, and I have no idea what that's
maybe
all
easing
about.
him back in was my first thought, but he has played well.
That's what I was
touch on it a little bit
thinking,
later.
too.
I thought Landeskog had one of his better games tonight, which is not a high bar considering some of his last few, but I thought he had one of his better games tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of, I don't really know if I agree that much with that.
I liked his puck control and his
I think it was just the lack of. Yeah, I would agree, but I just don't know how much Landeskog can do playing with an invisible comfer out there in a Jost that only spends his time in the defensive zone. So I would like to see Landeskog jump back up on that first or second line here soon. Zach brought up a good point when we were talking about it on the couch. It's like, do you think it was because we're trying to ease him back into the lineup, or is it because Bednar's been trying to make a point to him? He hasn't been necessarily stellar thus far this season.
I think, we've seen around the league, we've seen a lot of players come back from COVID and got to get their lungs back into shape. Goalies especially, Mackenzie Blackwood and Ilya Samsonov come to mind. Guys who had COVID for a little while and then came back. Samsonov went to the AHL to get his lungs back a little bit. So maybe I think there's absolutely an aspect of trying to let Landeskog get back into game shape a little bit by playing a few less minutes, but he did also play.
Am I wrong,
a lot
or
of
did
shifts on the top line
Landeskog
this game as well? He played with both lines. It was kind of switching around back and forth, but you do want to send that message a little bit and say, "Hey, Landeskog, you haven't been playing great before we took that pause. Let's see you step it up."
Okay, but did Landeskog not have COVID before the season started? I'm pretty sure he did.
I don't think that he did. I think he went on the COVID list during the playoffs last year, but it wasn't ever confirmed whether or not he had it.
No, dude. Before the season started, there were a few players. There was Landeskog, EJ. I don't remember the third that were in the protocol.
But being in the protocol doesn't necessarily.
I could be
mean
wrong on this. Yeah, but I don't remember. But anyways, yeah, I don't really know what to think about that whole situation. I think Wednesday's game is going to be a really telltale sign on what is actually going on with Landeskog, because you'd think a couple of games to get his lungs back under him, if he did end up having COVID or whatever, would be enough to jump him back into the top 6. And if we don't see him in the top 6, then I think there is a bit of a conflict going on.
There might be something. It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that could be.
Mm-hmm. All right, I want to talk about let's talk about Bowen Byram's first career goal, guys. He scored.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Yikes.
not a great look. It wasn't. It happens to every NHL defenseman at some point. The puck got in front of the net. He's trying to get it out of there, and he whacked it the wrong way, and he scored. So that's tough. It wasn't well, I mean, it was a terrible play because he scored on himself. But like, it's a very easy mistake to make. It's happened to everyone, but it did suck.
Yeah, that did really suck. And Bo overall, I'd probably
Yeah,
give him like a
not his
D. I don't think he
best.
had a good game at all. Byram had a pretty really god awful game. He was one of our worst defensemen out there in my opinion tonight.
I feel like that was kind of a trend throughout the defense in general. Like there were plays that all six of our guys could have made that would help the team more, but
Totally.
they just weren't on their game tonight, and that was kind of consistent throughout the lineup.
Yeah, now that you say that, most of the defensemen tonight were invisible. No, not really any Gerard flashes. Not too many, at
There were a
least. I can
couple
think
of
of a couple,
Makar
but
plays that I
not really.
liked,
Like,
but
yeah, that's the one I
yeah,
was gonna say. Makar was, doing his thing with his feet like he always does, but not very much activity from the other
Yeah, but
guys. But
he wasn't necessarily escaping on the blue line like we've seen him do. He'd shimmy shake a
yeah,
bit and like get in the shooting lane, but then it would just get
yeah,
blocked
right.
by
Or he lose
Vegas.
the
So
puck, and I'll
yeah,
attribute that to the ice again. I think there was an
there
issue with
might
the
have
ice
been. I don't
tonight.
know. Uh,
I don't know.
it's hard to
I think there
say. That's
was.
pretty well conditioned
Uh,
ice, and it hasn't been
It is
used in
hard
a
to say.
while.
well,
But
You're right.
maybe it hasn't
You're
been
right.
used in a while, and that's
You're right.
yeah,
fair.
I would think that Vegas has a better argument in saying that the ice was better on or worse on Saturday than it was tonight for the Avs having an argument on that.
Yeah, the ice was
Yeah,
terrible.
which
Yeah,
we
so
should talk Saturday a little bit, but we'll do that towards the end here. We're gonna keep going on with this one. I think Jim brings up a good point in the chat. Bo did look raw tonight. He was out of position. He got caught. I believe it was their third goal that led to the breakaway, or it might have been the first one. Whichever one that was a 2-on-1 that turned into a breakaway, where Bo just over pursued just that little bit. Where when you're going against two really really good players, he got caught. It's the fine tuning of
Right.
his game, which we talked about with Timmins. Timmins has more of it to do than Bo Byram does, but those little things that the elite
yeah,
talent we see it, but he hasn't played enough NHL games to know exactly what's going on in every single play. He'll see it, he'll learn from that. He got burned on a 2-on-1. Next time there's a 2-on-1 coming down on him, expect him to get a little bit more in that lane and take away the pass.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think Timmins was actually our worst defenseman tonight.
Yeah.
Bo was a little bit better than him. Just correct it there. Timmins was god awful tonight, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Billy, you kind of nailed all the points, but like Bo, we still have to remember that he's a rookie, and
Yeah.
and honestly, to this point in the season, he's been a bit of a pleasant surprise for the Avalanche.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't really seen him make too many rookie mistakes, and he seemed like he's adjusted really, really well into the NHL gameplay. But he is going to have games like this, and it's still just kind of learning on the fly. Like you said, Billy, he has all of the talent in the world. Like he is going to be a cornerstone on the Avs defense for years to come. There's no question about it. But there still is a learning curve. He's only 19 years old, maybe 20 at this point.
Yeah, I'm
But
not exactly sure when his
yeah,
birthday is. But
he's
yeah.
just fine. I think he's 19, but yeah. But anyways, he's a rookie. He's going to have games like this, but there's no the panic
yeah.
button is 700 years away. from
We
Bo
still
Byram.
feel real good about Bo and Byram. Even tonight, he had flashes where you're like, his offensive ability is incredible, and he's pretty good on that defensive side of the puck too for most of the time. He had a couple mental lapses. He's gonna. We're gonna see. It's not gonna be the last time we say, "Oh, Bo Byram made a mistake here." So we're still feeling pretty good. I want to touch a little bit on the Avalanche power play because, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. Even when the
one?
Avalanche power play was good, I was just waiting for this because I want to talk about why I think it's bad. And now that it is bad, let's just put this in perspective because the Avalanche power play right now ranks 12th in the NHL. Take away our 5 power play goals in one game, and we drop into the bottom half of the league. So, despite the fact that we have Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen on the same power play, we're a bottom half of the league power play. That's where we're at. In the outdoor game, we got to see a little bit of Mikko Rantanen at the point. which I thought was interesting. And they started cycling it a little bit. We saw McKinnon come down the middle, and then go to the side, which is what I've been calling for a year and a half. And I think a lot of us have been calling for a year and a half that we just haven't seen. And then they went, it didn't really work, but that's mostly because the ice was trash. You know, they didn't really get to skate around too much. So I don't want to think too much about that one.
And that was specifically in the
And
first
they just went away
period, too.
from it. We haven't seen it since. They didn't do it in the second or third period of that game, Marshall. You're right. And they didn't do it at all tonight. We just saw the same thing. 3 men standing at the top, not moving, which something is going wrong here. What do you guys think it is? Because it's insane to see that much talent on one power play, and it's just outright bad right now.
Right. The Avalanche, for whatever reason, through multiple coaches, have had the same playoff or power play philosophy for years. You're not moving players. They're just passing around the perimeter. It's like you said, Bill, you need to get players to cycle. You need to get the defense to start moving. The Avalanche just don't do that. The penalty kill on the other team is just able to stay in their box the whole time and not deviate from that. And another thing, the entries are an issue. We only have we have 2 entries for that top line and maybe one switch up for the second power play unit. It's crazy. They need to do something about that. We have way too much talent on both power play units to be a bottom of the league power play team.
Yeah. Billy, I like the fact that you brought up like the whole Mikko Rantanen running the point thing, because if you guys remember correctly, in the bubble we did see McKinnon running the point a little bit. And, we saw some different deviations. And throughout the offseason, they just totally forgot about that whole entire system. We're like, let's just revert back to being an average power play at best for whatever reason. And it baffles me, man, because there's so much talent. And really anyone on that first power play unit can just shoot the puck and snipe at any point. But, dude, we like you said, Zach, we're having a hard time even entering the zone. And once it does enter the zone, the other teams have a plan for it. And it's showing.
The better power play unit has been the second unit. And you know why that is? Sam Girard and Devon Toews like to cycle up top. They pass it around. They pass it back. They go back and forth. They take some shots on net. I don't know why the first unit doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And we got the players to do it. Makar could easily start doing that with whoever else he's playing with on that line. And Marshall, to your point, McKinnon up there gives a whole different dynamic to the power play. McKinnon, with his quick-ass release, can literally just fire it from anywhere at any given moment. And the goaltender, he might not be expecting that.
Well,
and it's great. McKinnon is just – he can do anything from anywhere, seriously. And that's why they try to funnel him the puck. But they do it on the wing. It's not I don't even know.
Well, it's not necessarily like he has to be up there at all times. But it's like that just if he's up there sometime, that means that the Avs are trying to cycle the play a little bit. It's frustrating.
You are not going to burn
and it's weird
NHL players often enough. Yes, Cale Makar has some incredible edge work, great at giving himself space. The way that you create extra space on the power play and drive opportunities is you get guys tangled up with each other. You want the 2 penalty killers to get tied up with each other because your guys are crossing. That's how good power plays work. That's why Toronto has so many power play goals this year. And standing stationary, passing back and forth, the penalty killer only has to do one thing. He knows you have 2 passing lanes. He's going to cover the pass across. So he's going to let you pass it back to the point man. And then he's going to let you pass it to one side or the other. And then he's going to let you pass it back to the point man. You can do that all day. And the defender is never going to give you an opportunity for a good scoring chance outside of a shot from the point and a tip unless you start crossing up, making guys get out of position on the penalty kill.
And it's funny because honestly, both power play units have some of the most elusive skaters in the entire NHL. But then apparently our scheme is just to have them all stand stationary. Stylistically, how Bednar likes to run this team, just like a skate fast, skate hard, drive the other team and really into their own end. It does not make sense that our power play looks like this.
I've heard a lot. There's a a lot of debates on whether or not this is a coaching issue or a player issue. Where I stand on this is, if it's a player issue with that many players that are just not listening, either that's because the players aren't buying in, which means that the coach is not communicating well enough, or the players are not understanding what the coach wants, which means the coach is not communicating well enough. So to me, that's why you need either better coaching or you need to make a change there as far as our power play coach, because it's not working right now. And there's reasons. We've explained why we think it is, and I don't know.
But it's so weird because the penalty kill
Yeah,
is really good.
number one in the penalty kill in the league coming in tonight. Into tonight, not sure if the power play goal that they scored will knock us back, but regardless, a top 5 penalty kill in the league, which is great to see. Good systems on the penalty kill and good players on the penalty kill. It's been very, very good.
Yeah. Another thing, I think Berkey needs to start, putting some pucks in the net.
Started the year really hot and has really cooled off.
Honestly, there's a lot of players that need to start putting the puck in the net more. McKinnon, Berkey, even Landeskog, Makar.
Yeah, I mean, a part of it, to be fair to some of these guys, shooting percentages for the Avs are pretty down across the board, which is usually just a sign that luck hasn't really been on our side. McKinnon's 4 goals aren't because McKinnon isn't shooting the puck as much as he normally does. I mean, part of it is he hasn't played as many games. That's one thing we need to factor in with a lot of these stats is, the Avalanche have played half the games as a couple of these teams. Maybe not quite half, but we're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games behind a couple of teams in the league right now. So our stats aren't going to be super eye-popping. There are teams... Vancouver's almost halfway through the season. The Avalanche are about a third of the way through the season. So part of our stats are because of that.
I'm sick of the Canadian division.
The Canadian division's insane.
Can I just say that? I'm sick of the Canadian division. It's a joke.
It's going to be so weird. We're going to have to look at the Hart Trophy conversation so much differently this year, because how much do you ding Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid for playing in the Canadian? Because they are playing incredible. I think right now my pick for Hart Trophy is Austin Matthews, but when we get to that conversation, how much do you ding them for playing in the Canadian division where there isn't any defense? And do you bump McKinnon for playing in the West where no one scores ever? How many 1-0? What percentage of the league's 1-0 games this year have come out of the West? Because it's high.
I think this year and this year only, the Hart Trophy needs to be decided after the playoffs are over. Just to see truly what Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, what they're doing, can be sustained around the league. Dude. And I'm also sick of all the Toronto Maple Leafs fans saying, like, oh my God, dude, our team is the best ever. Smell you later, rest of the league. My God. And the Edmonton fans is like, McDavid, dude, he's untouchable, best player in the NHL. I'm sick of it.
To be fair, McDavid is still my pick for best player in the NHL, and he's having an incredible year, but there's an argument there. And I mean, like, come on, if we had McDavid on Colorado, we'd be saying it was an untouchable number 1, too. There's always going to be a little bit of fan bias.
Yes, I agree.
But it's annoying. I get it.
Going to the chat a little bit, Jim says Confer has been pure caca offensively this year. It's not only offensively,
also on the penalty. We keep putting him on the penalty kill, but hey, I'm not going to ding the penalty kill too much because it's working. Reason. We're not getting scored on very often, although we did get scored on tonight. JT Compher has been our worst penalty killer of the guys that we regularly put out there.
He's been
on offense.
Our worst player.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's not even really up for debate right now. The worst player on the Avs this season has been JT Compher, and I don't know that it's close.
Like, in terms of players that you in terms of their expectations, I would say, at least, because that's like true. You throw in a Kiefer Sherwood or someone like that, it's like, yeah, they go out there and they do what they do, but in terms of like, JT Confer, he's
Yeah.
our third line center, and that's a pretty important role to have on a high caliber, NHL team like the Avs. And he is shitting the bed, dude. Bring in Bowers
Yeah.
already, or trade him.
I don't know.
Just sit Confer down. Just
Yeah, we
sit him
got
down for a
Belmar
couple
back
of
now.
games
Let
because we've seen
Belmar play
Bednar
fourth
do
line
this.
center. Give Jost a shot on the third line. Get some extra wings in there. Maybe slide in Kaut. Just at least send Comfer the message that, hey, we're not happy with your play, because honestly, it's felt like they've gone the other direction. When we saw McKinnon go down, the first guy they bumped up to the top line was JT Compher, which I don't know what Jared Bednar's seeing that the rest of us aren't. I think he's such a good coach in a lot of aspects, but every once in a while he just has. There's just something that it's like I just don't get it, and
Weird.
his play with
So
decision making with JT Compher this year is one of those things. Maybe he thinks that's what's going to push JT to play better. Maybe JT will play better because we've seen JT play better before in his career. I don't think he's just forgotten how to play hockey. He's just having a tough stretch that has extended longer than is allowed without getting criticized. So he's going to be criticized until he steps it up. So I don't know. I want to see it. I want to see Bowers. I want to see JT play
Right.
better. I just want to see something. I want to see the Avalanche. Yes.
Do something with the third line.
I just want to see something change.
What do you guys think JT's not doing so much this year that he's done in the past that made him successful?
Yeah.
Is he just not being as gritty? Is he not getting to those areas? What is it?
All of the above.
He
and
hasn't
more.
produced on offense.
And more.
He really isn't even driving play
That's
on
true.
offense, which I want to touch a little bit on Val Nichushkin too, because I think we're talking so much about
Okay,
JT
that's
Compher.
fair.
Nuke slides under the radar a little bit, and this was something we thought could happen.
Stole.
We thought, Val Nichushkin had a really weirdly good year last year. He has still been elite defensively, so he's got that on JT Compher, but Val Nichushkin's done absolutely nothing on offense. He's got one goal. That was nice. It was kind of a breakdown by the defender who gave him a shorthanded
It was
goal.
the worst
and then
goal
he
of
didn't
all
make
time.
a good move, but he scored. But he does have a goal, and I think that goal is a good example of things that happened to him a lot last year. He got some really nice chances. He got, the Toronto goal where the defender turned it over on the blue line and he got a nice run is one that comes to mind. He capitalized on his chances at a rate that was maybe not necessarily sustainable, and it hasn't been great out of Nuke this year on offense. The saving grace is that he has still been elite defensively.
Last year, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, we knew, like you said, Billy, Nuke's not going to be that offensive guy all time, every single year. But I would say I think he's been more valuable to the team than Confer overall. And like you said, that defense is just absolutely outstanding. And I believe he's probably on a better team contract than Confer is too.
Oh, dude, by far.
It's hard to say with EJ. With EJ on the roster, it's hard to say.
He's a value player.
But I think JT Compher might still have the worst contract on the Avs right now. It's just too much money. EJ at least is still...
Yeah.
Right now he's hurt, so I guess that's even worse. He's doing even less. But
it's pretty bad.
Both contracts are bad, but when they're both healthy, I'm more willing to give EJ his money than I am to give Compher his money right now.
Okay, in terms of Nichushkin, though, it's like last year I was saying to myself, oh my God, how did he not score a goal all season with the Stars? Like, time and time, I'm like, dang, dude, he's like actually sniping out here. He's making some plays. This season, I'm seeing a little bit of how he did not score one goal in an 82-game season because his offensive ability, especially when he's not skating, dude, is not good at all. He has maybe the worst hands. He has the worst hands.
Yeah, he's got stone hands.
It's not even quite.
I want to answer Jim's question, or his statement, I guess, in the chat. I want to address it a little bit. I feel like you can excuse Jost and Nuke's lack of production because they're great defensively. To an extent, yeah, but what is, for you and Marshall, and feel free, everyone in the chat and the comments, to answer as well. What's the minimum acceptable threshold of points that you need to produce for your defense, for elite defense, to be acceptable? Because I think it doesn't matter how good defensively you are to me. I think you need at least 10, 15 points over the course of an 82-game season to be an acceptable NHL player. And right now, I don't believe either of them are quite on that pace, although I don't think they're far off. Hard to be far off that pace, to be fair. I think they will both. Jost, I definitely think, gets there. You know, his we've seen a lot of bad luck. Jost tonight should have had an assist, but Fleury robbed McKinnon. I think Jost definitely gets to that pace, and I think he's shown it enough in his career that he's regularly on that pace. Nichushkin, we've only seen him have that pace once in his career. We've always seen him get to pretty good. Like, we've always seen him be very, very good on defense. Even when he was in Dallas, he was great defensively. We need to see a little bit more offense. I'm not necessarily taking Nichushkin out of the NHL right now, but I am saying that he's got to step it up because he is not doing enough offensively right now to hold a roster spot. Especially, his current contract isn't terrible. Like, it's not a bad contract, but it's also not the NHL minimum, you know? He right now, if he doesn't do anything...
Which is what Jost is on.
If he doesn't do anything more offensively than he is right now, which I think he will do a little bit more, then he is more of a 13th forward than he is an NHL regular. And he can be a third-line player. If he can get to 20, 25 points, then I think he's a third-line player. But right now we haven't seen it.
That's a good question you asked, Billy. Like, what is the minimum? I think for Jost, it has to be like 25 points on an 82-game, season, maybe 20 points, just based off of like expectations of his skill. Like, that there is some skill, behind that weird little curtain that Jost is living behind right now. For Nichushkin, I do think that last year was an absolute anomaly and all that, but I'm done hating on Jost. I'm not going to hate on Jost anymore. I have been a Jost hater in the past, and what he's doing on literally the league minimum, picking up that option for this team right now, dude,
and
I will
Jost is outplaying his production.
Jost.
That's the one thing that I think is why I brought up Nichushkin and not Jost, is because Nichushkin isn't producing because Nichushkin has bricks for hands. Jost isn't producing because when he makes a perfect feed to McKinnon in the slot, Fleury makes a save. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah, Jost has been overall really impressive. I'd say he was one of our better players today.
Especially in spurts.
Yeah, he made a lot of good general defensive plays. Like, yes, I was bringing that up. I was like, wow.
I saw the 7 and I assumed it was Taves. It was like, damn, Jost is playing bigger than he is.
And that was, dude. Yeah, that was right after he made a really good defensive play and then drove the puck down deep and
set McKinnon pass I was talking about earlier.
For, yeah, exactly. That was like the best spurt of a few plays that any Avalanche made all night. So I even texted Billy after that. I was like, damn, Jost looks all right now.
And that's really exciting because he comes out of the, what is it, Marshall, the BHL, wherever he came from.
BCHL.
The BCHL, and he was an absolute all-star.
V's, baby.
Right, and he's just a savage, and he needs to come to the NHL, and he's evolving his game right in front of our eyes, and it's awesome to see because I was high on Jost from the very beginning. We thought he was going to be our second line, whatever.
Man, and see that.
To see him do this is just awesome. I'm back on the Jost train too, Marshall. I was ready to sell last summer.
I was too, and I think part of that, Zach, is because a lot of the Avs fans were expecting him to jump in and like be that 2C right away. He was an absolute menace in the BCHL with the Penticton V's. I watched so many highlights of him, back in the day after we drafted him. And then he tore it up in his freshman season at North Dakota as well. And he got called up in the worst AV season in the history of the Avalanche organization. And I remember watching some interviews, even McKinnon saying like, "Oh yeah, he's going to be he's going to be a very important part of the Avalanche future," and so that's like the kind of jokes that me and a lot of like Avs fans kind of have wrapped around our brains. But then now that I have my expectations kind of
Now
soured a
you
little
start
bit,
to just appreciate what he
I'm ready
is.
to see what he can do. Yeah,
Hmm.
and he's not going to be our second line center like I expected him to be. He's not going to be putting up 50, 60 points, but he is going to be elite defensively, probably be our best penalty killer, and honestly be one of the most charismatic
He's so
locker
easy to
room
root
guys
for.
out there.
Yeah, I think that's
He works so
underlooked. I
hard
feel
too
Yeah.
on
like,
the ice.
especially from outside
It's good to see.
Colorado. Yes,
All right, guys, we've talked a lot about this
love
game.
Jesse.
We didn't do a podcast after the Tahoe game for a variety of reasons. The main one being that there was an 8-hour intermission in the middle of it, and we didn't think many of you wanted to watch us do a podcast from midnight to 1 in the morning. So we thought about doing one on Sunday, but then we ended up deciding, hey, let's just talk about the series as a whole and a little bit about that Tahoe game in today's pod. So we touched on it a couple times. The main takeaway from Tahoe for me is that the ice was garbage. And the outdoor games,
Yeah.
it's a good thing they only happen once a year because they're kind of there's I don't want to say they're dumb, but they are. But they're also so much fun and they're really cool. But also they're dumb, you know? Do you know what I mean? Like I really like them. I like playing in one once every couple of years, cuz it's not going to be us every year. We've got back to back. That's pretty cool. I like watching them, but they are dumb. Winning an outdoor game doesn't mean you're the better team. It's a
Okay.
little bit more. Things happen,
Hey,
but we won, and
don't
I'm
you
happy
say
that we
that.
won. But okay, let's not take too much away from it. I think the split is fair. I think Vegas and Colorado are two very, very even teams. I think that splitting the series is about the result you'd expect. It's about the result that's earned. I think both teams played pretty well. I'd give a slight edge to the Avs, but I'm a little biased, so there's that. Um, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on the outdoor game?
I mean, I
I am.
usually like I'm mad that it didn't work out, and I'm mad that the NHL didn't originally come out and postpone before the
Mhm.
first period because
Yeah.
it just gives the haters like Billy ammunition to
I
hate
don't
the
hate them. I
games even
like them.
more.
I just
You know
think
That's
what
what
I
I'm
don't
mean?
do
saying.
more of them. We're right
I
where
wish
we need to be.
Karim was in the chat because I'd rip him apart.
It's just
Dude,
like, damn, man. It sucks because the NHL goes through all that work, puts in all that money, and that's the reason that they go through with the first period there is to get those shots, even though
yes,
the product on the ice is just absolutely terrible. It's god awful. The ice itself is
to an
falling
extent.
apart. It was bad.
The
Yeah,
first period was
Yes,
awful. The
well,
that's what
second
I'm
and
talking
third
about.
they
periods,
were
I think,
standard outdoor
were pretty
hockey.
good. That
It
was pretty good
wasn't.
hockey.
I would say indoor hockey is always a better physical hockey game product. The benefit to an outdoor game is like we saw at Tahoe, it's beautiful, it's a really cool concept, and when you do it once a year like they're doing, which I'm perfectly happy with what they're doing. I like what they're doing. When you do it once a year, it's a great thing to have. It's just let's all be realistic about it. An outdoor game is a little bit less
The
meaningful
hockey's not as great.
as far as proving your ability as a team.
Yeah, Billy, but I'm done with you hating because this is going to be a historic moment for the NHL because I think the scenery was so freaking awesome. You listen to the players talk, you listen to all the coaches, it's like they were taking it in, as if they were kids again. This is something that the NHL I think might end up adapting to
Yeah.
because like this was a scenario in which this was probably the most beautiful NHL game that has ever been played, and the Avs were the first team along with Vegas to take the ice in that game. So
I
stop
don't think
hating,
that I'm
and
hating.
we just
I
saw
think I'm just saying.
history. We just saw
I
history,
think I'm just
baby.
saying that this is we don't need to go any further than we've gone. I
I
don't think I'm
agree.
hating.
I I agree, but my takeaway is that I hope that the NHL does something like this every year, not necessarily in like a baseball stadium or a
I
football
think that'd be
stadium or
cool.
something like that, or Air Force Academy that was like the worst planned
Hey, let's do it
event
in a
of all
military
time.
base. I bet that won't cause
Speaking from
traffic
someone,
issues.
yeah, with two entrances, two like an hour and a half away from Denver. Yeah, but I think something like this with like limited fans in attendance in super beautiful spots and throughout the US and Canada is a terrific idea. I am pretty upset that the NHL kind of dropped the ball on the whole weather situation because there is sun and stuff that needs to be accounted for. But like you said, Zach,
Yeah, maybe could have got that one figured out before the game. To be fair, weather's weird and hard to predict,
Right.
and the forecast did call for some cloud cover, which is why they thought they were okay. Is the clouds just didn't happen. Clouds didn't cooperate.
they don't like Lake Tahoe because Lake Tahoe creates its
Yeah.
own mini environment, and that's something that any meteorologist would know. But I don't understand why they didn't do something like the Philly and Boston game. They started it kind of
Mhm.
at sunset. You still get those scenic views, but the transitions into colder weather
Yeah.
and
I mean, that was a change they
less
also made
sunlight.
later on, though. Like,
Well, I
that game
think
was also scheduled to be a 1
yeah.
p.m. Eastern game, so or 1 p.m. here, 3 p.m. Eastern game.
Well, I think they wanted to do that because if you guys watch a few of the goals in that game, I think you can clearly tell the goalies could not see the puck on a couple of those goals. So they wanted the games to happen midday, which makes sense from a lighting perspective and a scenic beauty perspective. It's just like, and we've seen the NHL do this in California. It's like it's not impossible. It's just I think it was just an epic fail by the NHL. Like you said, Marshall, they dropped the ball and it was really
They
bad.
dropped the ball to an extent with the
No,
planning.
like
No,
I don't blame
do
the
not
NHL
think
on
this
this
was
one.
any
I think that
semblance of a
weather's
failure.
weird on this
oh,
one.
not
I
do
blame
not-
the
I think
NHL
it's
for last
bad.
year. I don't blame the NHL for this year. I think they planned it fairly well.
I
They
know
did as well
they
as they
do.
could have.
They should have not
They
even
had
started.
planning issues. They had planning issues, but their idea behind this, and honestly, I don't think even the first period was a failure and all
Big
that.
time.
But yeah, it was a big time failure. But in terms of drawing attention to one singular NHL event and it being like one of the most spectacular sporting events in terms of scenery that I've ever seen,
Mhm.
they did not drop the ball
Yeah.
on that.
That I will agree with. But I think just, like the first period on ice product was god awful. And literally there was videos of players scooping up slush with their stick.
My
Like
favorite one
it was
was
unplayable.
McKinnon is helping
And
up the ref because he just fell, and then Landeskog skates by and eats it.
yeah. It's like what?
It
the
falls
heck,
down.
man?
Yeah.
And then from there they dropped the puck to go through with the first period. It's like, what the hell, boys? What's going on here?
That was midway through the first. That
Okay.
was after the first ended, I think. I don't.
No, was
Yeah,
it?
it
Yeah,
was.
that was
It
when
was
they were
not. That
skating
was
off.
not
That was when they were
before the
skating
game
off after the
started.
first.
Okay,
I like
that's
Jim's
my
idea in the
bad.
chat.
Misinformation.
Maybe the All Star game
Misinformation.
could be your kind of big outdoor event of the year. Maybe do your one Winter Classic and then also
Okay.
throw in the All Star game. I think that'd be cool because it's like a little bit less meaningful. Like this one in particular. We talked even going into the game. I was like, this does give one team a competitive advantage. I thought it was Vegas in this case, but it ended up being Colorado because we got one fluky goal in the first period, and then it was like, well, now no one else can score. So
Yeah.
that, especially the way the first period was played, where the ice was garbage. So
I,
I do think that it's
I
weird.
think the second and third
Yeah,
periods.
the second and third were better, but Colorado scored first in the first period, and then the rest of the first period, it was like there was nothing any forward was going to do that could create a goal. We saw McKinnon's one-timer on the power play, which, to be fair, we've been critical of the power play. He would have scored on that power play if it had been on good ice because he missed his target by about 4 feet while he had the top corner open. He takes that top corner shot, and he makes it 8 times out of 10. But on this one, he misses it by 4 feet because of the ice. And I think we saw that with Vegas, too. They got a 2-on-1 that, as we saw tonight, they're good at those. They score those a lot, and they just couldn't even connect because the ice was bad. So that's my biggest. I won't even say problem with outdoor game. Just things to note. You have to go into those aware that it's not necessarily going to be hockey as a sport as a whole. is a sport where the better team doesn't always win, and I think outdoor games just all the weird bounces that can happen are just amplified just that much more.
Yeah, there's a ton of
Mm-hmm.
variability in hockey for sure. I kind of want to know what the players
Yeah,
truly
because they're
thought
never
about
gonna
this
they're
experience
never gonna
because
say anything
I
about
feel
it
like it was
publicly.
probably cool to an extent. I feel like yeah, but like if I was a
Mm-hmm.
player, it'd be cool to an extent, but then also I'd be super pissed about the ice. Like even when I'm playing, video games, it's like if my Wi-Fi or my audio is not working, it pisses me off to an extent, and that's kind of like having really
Yeah,
bad
it would be
eyes. So
interesting to hear them
Right. And
like no cameras, no risk of it being leaked to the media here. What do the NHL players really think when they're going to play in an outdoor game? I'm sure this one obviously they'd be very bad, but like I'm curious to see just in general how do they feel about playing in them. I bet they like the spotlight a little bit, so there's some good aspects of it. They like the spotlight. It's cool. Like it's fun to play outside. Marshall, we've
right.
Marshall and Zach, but all of us, we've all gone and played pond hockey before, and it's really fun. But I wonder with the NHL, like this is for the standings. This is a meaningful game, especially Colorado and Vegas, where these are division rivals that are very clearly at the top of the league. I wonder how they feel about it. So I think that's a good point, Marshall. I'd be very curious to hear what they might have to say.
Yeah, I think they like it. You know, after the Bruins game, you see them taking a team photo
Mm-hmm.
right after all of them on the ice. That's a memory they're gonna have forever. And I think they like it. I think they have a good time with it. But to your point, the ice was just atrocious, and I hated that. And it just gives all the haters fuel.
yeah,
That's
it
what my
does.
problem is.
All right, guys.
Yeah,
Oh, go
I
ahead,
mean, yeah.
Marshall.
At the end of the day, hey, I have a
Oh,
never mind. I want to get to a couple of closing statements though,
yeah. I
like
just want to
questions,
before
fun
we do
things
that, I want to talk just
that like
series as a whole, where we're at right now. How do we feel? After game one, we said, all right, we're looking for the split now. We did come away with the split. Losing the last of the three games kind of sucks, but where we are right now, tonight we had a chance to take over, not really first place because technically St. Louis has more points, but like de facto first place because by win percentage we would have been first. We kind of whiffed a little bit on that opportunity, but we're standing even. We've split with St. Louis. We've now split with Vegas. Where are we now? Is it? Are you happy with where we stand right now, or do you want more out of the Avalanche, or are they're exceeding your expectations? Which I don't think they're exceeding our expectations, but I feel like for me personally, I'm feeling good about where we are right now. I just want to see. I want us to eventually get that edge on Vegas, and I think we will
yeah,
on St. Louis. I'm a little bit less concerned about that one, but Vegas in particular, we have four more games. I'd really like to win three of those.
Yeah, that'd be huge. Moving forward, I think it's tough that we split this series again with another team. Overall, I don't think the Avs had the best series. That first game
Mm-hmm.
was kind of brutal. Second game we won. Outdoor game, total fluke. In this game, didn't play good
hey,
again. Didn't play good again. So I just I'm optimistic moving forward. They're not exceeding expectations. They're not where I want them to be. I'm not as happy as I w- I want to be.
yeah, I am. I guess I'm contempt right
Yeah.
now. I'm not necessarily like exuberant, or I'm not disappointed. One thing to look forward to is we do have some of those makeup games against some of the weaker
Yeah, we get
opponents in the
Minnesota on
division coming up.
Wednesday,
So
and then that goes straight into the scheduled series
in
against Arizona this
Arizona,
weekend.
yeah. So I'm curious to see how we look against those teams. Um, I'm definitely, yeah. I'm not where I would have been like happy at this point in the season, but I'm not disappointed. I'm just kind of right in
Mm-hmm.
the middle ground. Like we're playing fine. We're looking like a playoff team, like we all like predicted and all that. But we're not necessarily looking like the Stanley Cup favorites to this point in the season. I do think that we have the talent and all that to
Yeah.
overcome it. But and it is exciting to have mostly a healthy roster at this point. So once we get all the boys gelling again, I'm hoping that we can take that
Bottom
next
line, I
step.
think we came into the season thinking we should be high end contenders. I think we have been pretty high end contenders. We haven't necessarily we're not running with the President's Trophy or anything like that, but we are competing for the toughest division. The toughest division to win. I don't want to call it the toughest division because the bottom of it sucks. But if you're talking about a division race, Colorado and Vegas are the toughest opponents you'd have to beat out in a race. So I'd call it the toughest division to win, and we're right in the mix for it. So I like where we're at. Could be better, This isn't. They're not blowing me away with, oh my
Still
god,
a long way
this
to
is exceeding all my expectations. It's maybe slightly behind where I expected, but not. But taking it all in context, I'm happy with where we are. Basically, not thrilled, but happy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, the fact that we can keep winning and our record is what it is, even though for the most part, I feel like a lot of the games the Avs haven't really played their game and have looked discombobulated. Yeah, and that has to do with a bunch of injuries. But I think the Avs are going to come together at the right time and make a run deep, and that's just what I think. But right now, I'm not as happy as.
And I think a little bit of that not playing to their same level necessarily that we've seen. I think a lot of that has to do with Jim's point in the chat. We're playing all defensive first teams and with a high-powered offense. So we're still doing well on offense, but we're playing teams that are built to shut down a high-powered offense. And we're still beating them, but we're not blowing them out because they're designed to not be blown out. So our competition is definitely...
That's kind of why I'm curious about Arizona coming up.
I'm also very, very curious, looking even further down the line, when we get it... Well, if we get in, to the conference finals, take on a team like Toronto, I would be so curious to watch us play Toronto.
Wow. That would be amazing, bro. Could you imagine? That would be so awesome.
That would be a different kind of hockey than we've seen this season.
The amount of star power in that series would be unreal.
I don't really want to get too far ahead of that because I remember before the bubble we were talking about a whole Tampa and Colorado final.
To be fair, I stand by everything I said about that.
How
it would
much
have been real fun to
that
watch.
would have been. Yeah, that's true. Okay, I have one closing thing that I wanted to bring up. It's definitely not important or anything, but something I noticed. What the hell is up with Altitude's sportsbook?
Oh, the
whole deals. Because PointsBet is all over the ice, and then also they have ads. It's the exclusive partner of the Avalanche and the Nuggets, and then right away Kyle and all of them are giving their DraftKings pick of the nights.
Right. Yeah, that's
they're sponsored by all of them. I think is the thing because I know they're sponsored by DraftKings, PointsBet, and MGM, which. I guess they just don't have exclusive sponsorship.
To be exclusive, PointsBet literally on their ad says exclusive partner of the Avalanche and the Nuggets.
But the other ones aren't partners; they're just sponsors. I don't know.
Oh man,
I don't understand that.
You're sponsored by everyone. It's weird because we don't see that in any other industry. Because if you're sponsored by a beer, you're sponsored by that beer. When we were the Pepsi Center, we did not mention Coke. Coke did not exist in the eyes of the Avalanche organization. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's weird, but I guess they're just sponsored by everyone. Also, can we talk about how our announcers suck at betting? Dude! They pull these random bets, and I'm why?
They are literally the worst bets of all time. Every single week. It's what are you doing?
Yeah, I feel dude, I don't know. Do you think they're actually making their bets, or do you think it's someone
I
making
think they're making them? I don't think they're putting much thought into them.
Yeah, I think they're just picking them.
I don't think they're actually placing them, definitely. But I think they're just let's just pick a bet for today. And I don't think they put too much thought into it. They just do it because they have to.
I think that could be why they're going for the plus 47,000 ones.
You know what it is? It's a low-key ad read.
Honestly.
That's what it is.
It's not even that low-key. It's just
it's a low-key ad read. Because you're making
it's not low-key.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just funny that PointsBet is spread all over the ice, and then all of a sudden it's DraftKings pick of the night. It's Just like, what the hell are we doing? What are we
Oh,
doing?
and
Like
not
SVP
only that, Johnny Lyles again, fake sip of wine.
We need it.
Exposed video is coming.
That's our next TikTok.
Exposed
For those of
video
you
is
that don't
coming.
know, we have a TikTok
Wait,
now. I forgot to mention this last pod. I made a TikTok. Check us out on TikTok. Unless you hate TikTok, then don't, because I'm not going to push you.
No, dude, don't
I
hate
like
on
TikTok.
TikTok.
I'm okay with TikTok. I've come around a little bit, but it's still like I don't have
I love
my
TikTok.
attention span. Like I like to do multiple things at once, and you kind of
That's
got
why
to
it's
focus on a
perfect.
TikTok. So I'm not a huge fan personally.
Oh, give me a break.
But like you have to go to the next one, you know. So like I'll watch YouTube
man.
and then like I'll be playing video games while I watch YouTube. But like with TikTok, I've got to be holding my phone like actively scrolling through the TikToks, which is kind of a very specific reason, but that's the personally why I don't watch TikTok that much. But you should all be TikTok fans now because we made a TikTok and it's wonderful. So check us out at Off-Brand Avs on TikTok.
Good plug.
Yeah, and check us out everywhere.
We'll get more content coming.
For sure.
We'll get
and
more
we
content.
might one of
Yeah.
those TikToks
Content
might be a
coming.
John Michael Lyles expose about
Exposed
his
video.
not actually
That's
drinking
happening.
wine.
His fake wine drinking.
There's no way.
Bro,
We're
Get
gonna
ready.
see it.
I'm
You're gonna see Zach on TikTok
We're
telling us why
doing-
Lyles is not really drinking that wine. All right, guys. Is that
Yeah,
all we got for
exposed.
today, Marshall? Zach, any final thoughts to add in before we get out of here? All right.
wrap it up.
Oh, the Jays are the reverse
Yeah, they
retros
are.
are
I
sick.
like them.
Yeah, super sick.
That's something we did
But
touch
they
on.
are
But yeah.
nasty. All right. Thank you to all our viewers. If you're still in that live chat, go ahead, leave a like for us. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're watching anywhere else, we are on Twitch and YouTube live immediately after most of these games. Pretty much every game. The only one we missed was the outdoor game because of weird reasons. But check us out live. It's the best place to watch us. If you really do keep just listening with the podcast audio on all our other platforms, keep doing that. But follow us whatever your platform allows. Leave us a review.